Hi, everybody. I'm Crystal Haynes. Tonight on Greater Boston, UMass Health has closed down its maternity ward in Leominster despite dire warnings from healthcare workers. How will it affect the community? Plus, what is it like to be 13 in 2023? I'm going to talk to a journalist behind the New York Times project that followed 1 year in the lives of 3 girls growing up on social media. There is no longer any inpatient maternity care in Leominster after the UMass Memorial Hospital there shut down its birthing center. The closure came after months of protests, but the state ultimately declined to block this move, and a last-ditch lawsuit filed by the city of Leominster went nowhere. Now, in a message to caregivers, UMass Memorial Health says in part that the decision was difficult, but it comes down to a severe workforce shortage and the inability to consistently provide 24/7 labor and delivery care. But healthcare workers fear that that move is putting patients and babies at risk. I'm joined this evening by Irene Hernandez, co-chair of the advocacy group Community United to Save Our Birthing Center, along with Chloe Schwartz, director of maternal health for March of Dimes, Massachusetts. Now, we do want to know, we also invited UMass Memorial to send a representative to join us, but they declined. And I also want to say that I do serve on the March of Dimes of Massachusetts board, but of course we are going to have a full faith discussion here about what's going on in Leominster. I want to welcome you ladies. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having us and bringing light to this issue.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Irene, I want to start with you. This is something that is a near and dear to your heart, this particular subject in this hospital, and I know that you've had a personal experience here, and I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, so as the hospital has been preparing to take away essential services for the last 5 years within North Central Massachusetts, I remember quickly when they announced it on Memorial Day weekend the day before, and I immediately was sick. I was sick to my stomach. I was uncomfortable, and I feared for the worst because I remember in December of 2017, my daughter, who was healthy, young, had a placenta abruption, and she was brought via ambulance to Leominster Hospital, and she was hemorrhaging. So as she's being brought to the hospital, she's hemorrhaging, and they had to do an emergency C-section on her. She required 3 pints of blood to keep her alive. And my grandson was born not breathing. So it required a few more experts to be there to save both of their lives. And so when we think about these things, we think about just how quickly tragedy can happen. If the hospital right now, it's not open. So if someone like my daughter comes in right now, you're not going to be able to stabilize them, to send them or life flight them anywhere. And the emergency room is not equipped. They don't have the professionals or the training expertise in how to save a woman or a birthing person's life or the child if the child, is born in crisis, as my grandson was.
And Chloe, I know the March of Dimes, and especially in your role, has been following, making sure that there are access to birthing centers, prenatal, postpartum care, and things like that. So when one of these centers close, how does the March of Dimes think about taking care of women and mothers?
Yeah, so Crystal, we began reporting on this concept of maternity care deserts back in 2018, and we've released reports every other year since then. And this year, we actually released a supplemental series of reports for each state, DC and Puerto Rico, really delving into other factors just beyond, the physical presence of a birthing hospital or a birth center, but also looking at, average distance based on personal automobile use or the chronic health burden in different counties across the state, across the country. Because all of those factors also impact, what's going to happen in these different healthcare sites. And unfortunately, the trend that we've been seeing even before 2018, but I think was the catalyst for starting to release these research reports, was a trend, and not a good trend, but a trend of closures in maternity care specifically. We've seen almost more than, I think, about 10 closures in Massachusetts alone since 2010, almost an average of 1 per year. And that's a trend that fits with the rest of the country as well. And so every year we're seeing new counties emerge as these maternity care deserts where women and birthing persons just don't have anywhere in their county to go and give birth. And some families in this country are traveling up to 2 hours. And that's if they're lucky. And if there's no traffic and they have their own car, all of which are factors we're paying attention to.
Yeah, Irene, I know the UMass Memorial Health has said that they are going to provide transportation to get access to care and investing $600,000 in other prenatal and postpartum care as well. Do you think that that's going to be significant or sufficient, rather, to close the gap here?
No. And also, I just wanted to add that Leominster Hospital Birthing Center is number 11. It's the number 11 labor and delivery closed in the Commonwealth in the last 10 years. Particularly, most of them have happened in the last 5 years. So this is number 11. And we already know that in North Central Massachusetts, we have issues and problems and concerns already with transportation. And, you know, at the DPH hearing, they spoke about doctors, OBGs, nurses, hospital staff, about, and also birthing parents, of how difficult it is to get to the hospital to go through the well visits, right? And how many times they would miss many of those visits while they're pregnant because of transportation, that there's no access. And then we have people who are coming already from 30 and 45 minutes away to Leominster Hospital, which serves a population of over 200,000, right? And they're not able to get there. So imagine taxing and putting on the 45 more minutes. My fear and my pain is that I know that there's going to be many more birthing people like my daughter, and they will perish. People are going to have children on the side of the road. There's not going to be enough transportation. $600,000, that's a drop in a bucket of a place that is already a transportation desert. The ambulances are already burdened. There is no relief, and there is no way of safely getting birthing parents to a hospital on time if they're having their baby now. $600,000 is probably going to last maybe a couple of months, and then it goes right back on the taxpayers. And so the other problem here is that those are community dollars. And my other question is, where was the commission from the community informing the hospital in how to make sure that there's a plan in place to secure the lives of our birthing parents and the future of their children being birthed in this county? And there is no plan, and it is insufficient.
Chloe, I know that March of Dimes and other organizations have been tracking maternal mortality rates. When you see a birthing center and access become a challenge to getting to a space, especially in communities of color, we know that North Central Massachusetts, Leominster specifically, is heavily Latina. And so as we talk about that, how can we assume that it's going to affect that maternal mortality rate when we're seeing the birthing center that's in a community where likely there are folks that look like the folks that they are treating go away?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different factors behind these rising maternal and infant mortality and morbidity rates, but I don't think it's a coincidence that we're seeing this trend of service closures specifically for birthing persons and women alongside these worsening outcomes. And the reality is that the farther a woman travels to receive maternity care, the greater the risk of adverse health outcomes for both herself and the baby. That could be anything from, hemorrhaging are impacted when you have to travel further for care. And beyond that, even with the knowledge that you'll have to travel farther and all of the best planning efforts, that reality is still quite stressful. And that stress over time on a pregnancy increases your blood pressure, increases your risk for adverse mental health outcomes. It's all interrelated, and it causes a financial strain. A lot of families are having to think about whether they get a hotel room nearer to their hospital the week of their due date. And that's lucky if they make it to their due date, because our preterm birth rates are also rising. It's a very complex situation that you can try your very best to plan for, but at the end of the day, you just never know.
Yeah, I know that Governor Moore Healey, there was an appeal last minute for her to step in and her administration to step in. And instead, she's ordered these reviews of maternal care across Massachusetts, specifically in North Central Massachusetts as well. Irene, do you think that that was a sufficient enough response?
I think, thank you for a response, but I don't think it was sufficient, because if we're putting birthing parents and women at risk for dying and losing their life, and I get emotional because I just think about my situation and what that could have been like today if my daughter had given birth today. And so I don't think it's sufficient. I think that the governor, especially seeing that in North Central Massachusetts, UMass has been taking away essential services systematically, right? And like, we were talking about, it's not by chance, it's by design. It's purposely done. And what happens is it's hurting, the most vulnerable populations, which are the poor people and Black and brown women and families, right? This is when you're removing essential services, what you're causing is this gap in equity, and we're going to die, and we're going to continue to die because there's no access in North Central Massachusetts. So I think that the governor, I'm glad that she, is doing something, but it's not enough. I think she gets to use her executive power to create that, and it doesn't get to be a trend just because someone says it's a trend. It doesn't get to be okay, and I think our community needs to understand this is our community dollars, our community hospitals. And we're the ones that get to inform them as to what we need in our community. And all of these essential services that they're removing are causing harm to our community. And I think that's what Governor Healey's administration needs to really understand. And not just that, we get to put policy in order in places, and there gets to be, a commission that's going to be designed so that this doesn't continue to happen. And then these hospitals get all this stabilization funding, and then they close all these hospitals in areas targeting Black and brown and our most vulnerable poor populations that can't defend themselves. So there's still more to be done. And I think that the governor, she ran on reproductive rights and protecting the voice of the common person. That is me. That is all of us here. And she gets to show up.
Chloe, I know that the March of Dimes ended up sort of a little bit drug into this fight outside of its mission, of course, but the data from the reports and the research that have been done from the organizations were used by UMass Memorial Health as part of a justification for this closure, in addition to the staffing shortages. And so talk to me about the response from the organization and why it's important that the data be seen specifically in the light that it was meant to.
Yeah, I won't lie. I was disheartened to hear that. These reports don't show a positive trend. And just because Massachusetts is very lucky to have higher access to care currently than any other state doesn't mean we want to move in that direction. And so if I can speak bluntly, the intention of these reports is to prevent future closures and is to help inform policymakers and other officials to better improve access to care. And so it's my hope that it'll be utilized in that way moving forward. I think it's also really important to call attention to the fact that because of the data lag, these reports only go up until 2020. And we know there have been multiple closures in Massachusetts since then. And so they don't paint the most accurate landscape of our current state of access. And I don't think that's appreciated in those conversations either, is that, you know, there is a lag. We saw some foreseen and unforeseen closures since then. The Beverly Birth Center, Brockton Hospital's fire, and a few others. And so, you know, there's a nuance to it that I think gets overlooked.
Absolutely, and so much more discussion to be had. I know that the fight is not over for either of you all to make sure that moms and birthing persons have access to prenatal and postpartum care, and there's a lot happening on that front. Irene Hernandez and Chloe Schwartz, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
So much for having us.
You know, at 13 years old, you could not have paid me to share my diary with anyone, let alone the New York Times. But that's exactly what 3 brave teenage girls in Maryland have done. Take a listen.
I've been feeling good lately. My relationship with my mom has gotten better. I feel like adults treat me a lot different now that I have a boyfriend.
I woke up today, I put on these gray sweatpants, it's Billie Eilish shirt. I'm feeling much less overwhelmed this week.
The main thing that I've learned is that do not waste too much time on social media.
I'm Addie.
I'm London.
I'm Anna. I'm finishing up middle school near Denver, Colorado, and this is what being 13 is like for us.
Now, through voice notes, diary entries, and social media posts, these girls share an inside look of what it's like to come of age in the age of social media. The piece is called Being 13, and the journalist behind me joins me right now. Jessica Bennett is a contributing opinion editor for the New York Times, an author, and an adjunct professor of journalism at NYU. Thank you so much for being with us, Jessica.
Thanks for having me.
I understand this project has been went on for about a year or a little bit over that. I mean, how'd you get a 13-year-old to talk about some of, you know, what's probably the most private moments, or it feels like, you know, the end of the world for them?
I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head. I would not have wanted to share my 13-year-old diary with anyone. In fact, I found my own diaries a few years back and trashed them all, which I regret, of course. But, you know, these 13-year-olds were really brave. They were really honest and open and unfiltered about what they were going through, not just the good parts, but some of the messy parts too. And so it took time, but over the course of a year, they really opened up and shared their lives with us.
Now, you're probably younger than I am, but certainly we did not have to grow up under this big lens of social media. And, you know, I think the closest I probably had was like MySpace or something like that. I mean, that has got to be a big game changer here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an underlying anxiety at all times, even if you're not allowed to be on these platforms. You know, the reason we chose 13 is because that's the age that you are legally allowed, according to these social media sites, to join their platforms. But for girls, it's also the age at which self-esteem and self-confidence tends to dip. So we were really interested in how those two things intersected. And, you know, yeah, I remember being 13. This is an incredibly hard time. There's hormones, there's friendships changing, there's so much going on. And then to do it with the threat of an audience or the idea of an audience at all times is just a real game changer.
I know cyberbullying is obviously something a lot of parents are concerned about and talk about. Talk to me about how these young girls navigate that at all.
You know, it's interesting because you can put all the controls on your child's phone. You can, you know, not allow them to join certain sites. But the reality is, because so many kids are on their phones and using these sites, you can't really escape it. But I think that probably the best advice I heard from, you know, a combination of parents, teachers, and the girls themselves is really having open conversations, you know, like understanding and speaking openly about the idea that not everything you're seeing online is reality. Like, this is curated, it's filtered. And so if something's making you feel bad about yourself, recognizing that and asking yourself what it is and considering putting that phone down.
What kind of change did you see in these girls over the year from when you started to, you know, through the year as the project wrapped up?
Well, that was just so amazing because you don't realize, or maybe you forget that 13, I mean, they're going from being girls to, teenage, young adult women. And so the amount of maturity, the way that they articulated themselves, and just physically the way that they changed was so remarkable from start to finish. And so we weren't even thinking necessarily about that when we chose this age, but to look at the photos of them from the start of the project compared to the end of the project, it's like a little girl and then a young woman.
What were, I guess, if anything, surprised you as you were following these three girls?
I didn't exactly know what to expect, but I think one of the things that was surprising is just how self-aware they were. Not every kid is going to be this aware. And of course, we chose girls who we felt like were going to be comfortable opening up. But even as they were using these platforms and even as they were scrolling and knowing that they were spending too much time on them, they were also consciously aware that sometimes they needed to go outside. Maybe they needed to put that phone down. Like maybe this wasn't healthy for them in some ways. But it was almost like this cognitive dissonance where they couldn't quite get off, and yet they knew that in some ways it wasn't great for them.
Well, speaking of that, I think we have a soundbite from Addie talking about what it's like being away from her phone.
I just feel like I need it, like it helps me get through the day and gets through the week, gets through a lot of stuff. I have like a very close connection with it. Not having it does make me more anxious because you literally never know. I don't even have anything bad on my phone. It's just I get really anxious. It's like separation anxiety.
Now, Jessica, I know a lot of young people in my life. My husband's actually a high school teacher, and it's like these phones are like security blankets for young people.
And like a friend, she's describing it as separation anxiety like it's a human. But the reality is that is where a lot of her connections and her friendships are happening. They're happening inside the phone. So, one of the parents involved in this project said at one point, it's such a love-hate, like it's such a give and take, because I feel bad in some way taking the phone away from her or preventing access, because it's where she feels connected to her community and her friends. And yet at the same time, it completely affects her mood. And so how do you balance those things? And I think that's something that a lot of parents are really struggling with and trying to figure out how to navigate.
Well, speaking of parents, we hear from these young ladies through your piece how they connect with their parents. And I'm thinking as a parent on the outside, like, how do you even enter this world that's already so perilous for the young people involved themselves?
Right. And that's the thing, too. It's not all bad. There are communities that people are finding. There are like-minded individuals. But I think it's really tricky as an adult because the kids know more about technology than you do. So they're always going to be 3 steps ahead. They're always going to find a way around it if you're preventing access. And so that's why I really think that open communication, and probably your husband could speak to this as a teacher, but open communication with kids about what they're seeing, about how it's making them feel, about, here we don't really feel comfortable having you on this platform and here's why, is really one step toward a healthy relationship.
One of the things we've been hearing about recently a lot in news headlines is media literacy and navigating what kids can and cannot see online and how they use their cell phones and where they use their cell phones. Given all of the reflections you take away from this particular piece in the project itself, do you think media literacy has a role to play in all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually maybe the biggest role, because it's hard to control everything else. And, with every story like this, there's always a ton of comments in the comment section. And often it's people saying, just take your kid's phone away, just ban them from all of these platforms. But it's just not so simple. I think we have to talk openly about why these platforms can be harmful, the fact that it's not all harmful. There are some good things that come out of it, but really understanding that there's a lot of false stuff there. There's a lot of misinformation. That person you're seeing whose life looks so perfect and so much better than yours is really probably curated and filtered. And so understanding that, you can't necessarily just compare yourself to what you're seeing, because there's a slice maybe of reality to it, but it's not pure reality.
And I'm thinking about like peer pressure and even that being in real life and also online. We're hearing about these trends where, you know, kids are even dying as part of that. I wonder if you could speak to about, you know, how these girls manage that peer pressure piece online.
Well, you know, look, it's popular for us in the media to pick up on these TikTok trends where like one bad thing happens. And in some ways it reminds me of like when I was a kid and people were talking about rap music.
That's right.
Or kind of every generation has this panic. And sure, we should take these things seriously. But I also think that we have to understand this isn't everyone and that there are healthy ways to engage on these platforms. And so part of the reason why we wanted to do this project was to really put some depth and some faces of real people behind these headlines that you keep seeing, because they're coming out, you know, multitudes day by day, and studies, advice, conflicting diagnoses, like all of these things. It's hard for parents, I think, to know what to believe. And so what we wanted to do was really give a glimpse into how this really does play out for real teens over 1 year of their middle school life.
Another question I had is, since you follow the 3 girls, will you be following 3 boys at all in the next installment?
It's a great question.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people have suggested that, and I think it's a great idea. You know, we wanted to focus on girls for this project because we know that their self-esteem tends to drop right around this age. But absolutely, this is not just affecting girls. I think boys have their own specific struggles with social media, and all teens and all parents are facing this. So I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. I guess, you know, in the final minute or so we have, what do you hope that folks really take away from reading this work, from the project that you all have been working on for a year now?
I think that it's complicated, you know? It's not as simple as banning all platforms. It's not as simple as taking away your kid's phone, but there's some complexity to it. And I think really what we can learn is that open conversation is probably the best way to go.
Jessica Bennett, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, that's it for tonight, but come back tomorrow. Congressman Seth Moulton joins Greater Boston on his calls for fellow Democrat Bob Menendez to resign over bribery allegations, and Donald Trump baselessly accusing a top military leader of treason. Then the first female president of Harvard discusses her new memoir, Necessary Trouble, Growing Up at Mid-Century. That and more tomorrow at 7. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.
This is Christopher Kimball.